right. Hey, everybody, what's up? It's Tipping the Scales. I'm Shea Dawson.
And Tyneeha Rivers, welcome.
Welcome. Tyneeha, what is up? How was your day today?
It's great. I was looking forward to introducing our first episode. So I'm super pumped and ready to introduce ourselves to the world.
Yeah, I really haven't slept since we launched. Like, I'm dead tired. I know I told you the other day, but super tired.
Yeah.
But I'm pumped. It's a weird, like, my body's tired, but my mind just can't get off, like, that we're actually speaking to the world. Like,
well, the funniest thing is we dropped the trailer and everyone's texting me laughing emojis like T Money. Who is that person? They've never heard me go by T Money before. So everyone's excited to know more about who T Money is. So I guess I'm supposed to open up and share that story about her.
And I love
my
it
alter
because
ego.
I love that because I feel like this is the reason why we started our podcast, because we're always in a professional setting. And
Absolutely.
sometimes it can be a little bit suffocating not being able to be yourself all the time.
Yeah.
And so I think that T Money to me represents like a new step forward, like showing the world like the other side of you, which I know really well, but other people don't.
Wait a minute. I wanted to text like you 1,000 times, but I really held back because they were like, who is this person? Well, and I kept regretting, like, oh my God, I should have just stayed to the professional Tyneeha. I should have never said T Money, but I think you're right. It's like more about being yourself and being comfortable to kind of step out of your shell and get to know people, get to know me on a personal level, which I'm hoping that we can do today.
Yeah. And I'm really excited about this because we have really interesting stories on how we ended up as a friendship, as we ended up as like a sisterhood. Like, it's just crazy. So I
know
am inspired by you, and I would love for you to tell everybody just like how you got started and then how, when we met and all
taking it way back, like got started. Okay.
Like, well, like day one, how T got started. Yeah.
Well, I think I would be remiss if I don't talk a little bit about where I came from to how I evolved to being the professional that I am today. Is, I came from a tough spot. I would say very humble upbringings, came from Philly, West Philadelphia. And, I was a straight A student throughout high school, was really excited to go to college. I was one of the first in my family to go to college. And then come my sophomore year, I was pregnant. So you can imagine, right, the call home to your parents to be able to tell them like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. Can you believe this? Right. I was really afraid. And I can tell you that kind of started the mindset of how I have to be able to push past those challenges in my life, because I'll be straight up and honest. Like, a lot of people in my family said, we thought you were going to be the one. You let us down. You're not going to be successful and you ruined your life. I'll never forget that too. Like, just hearing those words repeat, you ruined your life. You ruined your life. You ruined your life. That is something that's, I think, stuck with me throughout my life to where I am today. But I kind of use that as really a stepping stone and a goal to make sure that that's not something that's going to hold me back. So that way I can propel forward with my aspirations and the goals that I had in my life.
Yeah. And I'm curious, who were the people in your life, if there were any, that believed in you even when you had, gotten pregnant at that young age? Was there any one person, anything you can remember where you pulled from just to kind of get out of that mental space of everything?
Yeah, I think in the very beginning, it was just disappointment across the board. And, I think eventually my mom came around and she was, had told me that you could do this. You could be successful. Don't let that outside noise kind of get in your head to dictate your future. So, of course, my mom is always going to be my ride or die, the person that's in my corner to really help understand where I'm at. But, if you brought her on right now, and I told her, I said, my parents already reached out. When am I going to be on your podcast? I'm like, slow down. We didn't even get through episode 1 yet.
Okay.
But I think if you would talk to her, she would be very honest and say, I was very disappointed and I wanted more for my daughter. But, I think, again, just being able to set goals and understand that I wanted to make sure that my son had set him up for success was something that I use as like my fuel to propel me forward.
Man. And when I heard that story the first time, I literally just knowing you at that professional level, I just thought, wow, like I really want to dive more into the details. Like,
Yeah.
that's so crazy. So when is it that you started to have this professional mindset of like, okay, you know, I have this child, everyone's saying this about me, but how did you, like, when did you focus in on what you really wanted to do and tell everyone?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it was when I was in college. I said, okay, how can I make sure that one, I am getting through school because getting my degree was still very important to me. And I also wanted to start it, I had to work. My back was
Right.
against the wall. I couldn't just, send my child home like, here you go, mom. I'll be there when I graduate. It didn't work like that. So I had to get a full-time job and switch from full-time to part-time. And I literally took one class per semester until I was done. And I kept saying to myself, I'm going to, one day I want to run my own HR department. It's something that was really important to me that I wanted to do, but I had to take it in little bite-sized pieces and make sure that each year I was working towards checking off my list of the things that I wanted to accomplish.
Yeah, and HR is such a Libra thing because we're
Why
dealing
you
with
say that?
because we love people, we love service, we love building something out of nothing, right? Like, and I think that is like what attracted us to each other is like, wait, hold on, she's in HR, but the way you were when I met you, mind you, okay, let me back up. When we met at the Sixers, she was on the business side, I was on the basketball side. And in basketball, if you guys don't know, like, even though you're one organization, there's two buildings and only high level ranking business operations can come over to basketball operations. And T was one of the ones always coming through there. And every time we saw her, we were like, what does this mean? Is someone getting fired? Is
I know.
someone getting promoted?
That was the first thing that I was trying to do, was trying to make sure that you guys knew that I want to connect. Like, part of my job in HR is being able to cultivate relationships. And I didn't want you guys to think that, oh no, T's in our building. She's about, every time I saw you, you put your head down.
The fence.
I'm like, what's up with this girl? Let me introduce myself to Shawty, let her know, so she can know that I'm good.
Hilarious. Okay, so anyway, so I just wanted to give that context. So go back. So who is your son? We keep talking about your son, this child that you had when you were young. Who is your son? Tell everybody. Go ahead and pop that collar.
Well, my guy, I would say my little guy, but then when I said it, people always look at me like I'm crazy. But my guy, Mikal Bridges, you probably know him, two-time two-star Villanova.
Two-time champion.
Yes, thank you. Two-time champion at Villanova. And he plays for the Phoenix Suns. So, look, I'm super proud of him. Like me, that kid has more grit than anyone I know. And I'm just so proud to be his mom. And outside of what he does on the court, he is the nicest person. You've met him, he's super humble and just a good person. And out of all the things I've done in my life, that's the box that I check to say, okay, I've done something right. Like, all of my energy, I kind of poured into this one person to make him a great human being. And that's exactly who he is. He's awesome.
Yeah, and he is. And a little backstory. So when I was on the basketball side with the 76ers, I had Mikal during the draft. So he had so my job with the Sixers was to make sure that the players and the families had everything that they needed. So that literally, I can't even explain the scope of all of that. But there was one particular moment when he came in for his pre-draft workout, and I went over to T's office. I was like, T, I want to decorate the car service for Mikal. Can you please write him a letter? And so I ended up getting the letter from T, and I taped it up on the TV inside the SUV, and like I put some stuff on the seats, and like I thought, this is why my job is so cool, because I was able to run over. And then during the draft, I was able to be with him. I took a picture with T and video. And
it was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. It was a cool moment for us.
Wait, you probably don't remember this, but
what?
When you were asking me these questions, like, I was like, with this girl, I can't even, like, Shea, I was so hyper focused on how's he doing? Like, what is he doing? How's he shooting? Like, I had all these questions. You probably don't remember, but you was like, take a deep breath, T.
I do.
He was like, he's going to be good. I was like, well, how's he shooting? Like, what is he doing? Like, that's all I wanted to know, is that he was doing a good job.
and it was one of those things where I couldn't explain to you, but I'm like, he comes from the Jay Wright tree.
Yeah.
Like, players
Shout
from
out
Villanova.
to Jay Wright. I love Jay Wright.
Shout out to Jay Wright.
Awesome coach. Yeah.
Right. And what I know, just being in the basketball world forever and ever and watching just loads of championships, is like Jay Wright's players they get it. They get everything. Their professionalism, they're well prepared. And I
Yeah.
thought, T, you got nothing to worry about, right?
I
Like you got
know.
nothing to worry about.
But I'm a
So
mom. I'm crazy. I wanted him to do well. And that's the mom part of me that I'm trying to, you kept saying you were all like in business mode, like, we got to provide a great experience. What do we got to do? I'm like, what is he doing on the floor? And then
I know.
I got past that. I was good.
I'm like, this is my job. It's on the line to make sure, even if you work here, like I need you to know that we got your son, that I got your son. And I felt like you just helped me. Like you were like, Shea, whatever you need, I got you.
Yeah, it was fun. I miss working with you day to day. Remember the times we used to work out every day together? That was fun.
Yeah,
those workouts were intense.
Shout out to Dom. Dom's the head strength and conditioning coach at Northwestern right now.
Hey, Dom.
Hey, Dom.
Missed you, but hated your workouts. They were good.
All right, so I kind of, since we're on this topic, I want to go back to a specific moment that is kind of crazy between us because we were at the draft. We're all excited. We knew and we wanted him to go to Philly. We were like, this would be amazing. I mean, he played at Villanova. Like, we want to play for Philly.
Why are you trying to get me to cry my lashes off? I'm trying to be
because
good
this is
here.
real. This is real. Go ahead and let that lash hang.
No, I'm trying to make sure they stay on. I did this just for you.
You look cute. You always look cute. So, and this is something I never get to talk about. So I really just have to, because I have to live with these life-changing moments and no one ever knows. So I just feel like this is the opportunity. So
yeah, I can take it back to the draft. Look,
I'm kind of getting shaky.
Yeah, listen,
I'm kind of shaking.
I'll never forget. And to this day, like every time Mikhail comes out, he gets on the court, I look at his number on his back and I cry every time. For those who don't know, that kid had the same number since he was in high school. He was 25. And at Villanova, he was 25. And in Phoenix, he's 25. So whenever I see him run out on the court in 25, I still get teary-eyed today. It's just, I don't know how long. It's like that. He's played 3 seasons and I still do that every time. But going back to the draft, it was such an emotional roller coaster.
Oh my God.
From the time of, I didn't sleep, like how we were going back and forth in text message about the excitement of our podcast, kind of like that on steroids, right?
Right.
Weeks before, I kept thinking about the draft and, fast forward to the night of getting ready, getting dressed. I kept thinking about, I can't believe we're here. And all those struggles, all those sacrifices, all those hardships, like that is what has made him be able to have that moment and for me to have that moment. So I was just thinking about all these different things. Like, I can't believe it's here. And then when I got set on a floor and just saw the stage, that's when I kind of broke down crying. It was crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
And I get emotional. I really do.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Seeing you just glowing, from ear to ear, you looked beautiful. You had on this black romper with the white.
Hey, I was cute.
Yeah, you had the and then you had that little swoop. I was like, oh my God, it's crazy.
Yes,
and I think I wore heels and I never wore heels after that. No.
You look cute. I never forget that yellow dress. Legs for days. Don't you think I forgot you in that yellow dress either. You look super cute.
Man. But okay, so I want to go back to this moment. So
yeah.
We, you and me and everyone else, I think the world, we wanted him to go to Philly.
Yeah.
So come time, Sixers are on the clock. I'm nervous. My hands are sweating. I don't know what you were doing because you were, at the tables with the family. I was in the back.
Was not breathing, but trying to take little breaths. I thought I might need a CPR, but I was getting through. It's crazy.
And then, doom, 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 Sixers kick is in, the little noise and
heart drops.
Yeah. And we're hoping that they choose him, right?
Yeah.
So then Adam Silver says, oh my God, he calls Mikhail's name.
Number 10 picking the draft.
Number 10 picking the draft.
Yeah.
Mikhail Bridges, and we go, and I see you. I see you up there.
My hello arm. I'm like, yeah.
And I'm sure the office is going crazy. Our friends back at home.
My phone is blowing up. I'm trying to shut my phone off. It just kept buzzing every second. It was going crazy.
Yeah. So what you don't know, because you weren't in the back. So I get Mikhail. We walk back. Well, he has to do all these stations first. So he stops at the first station. He opens his coat. He's got his outfit on. He's happy. He got his Sixers hat. He's fixing it. I'm smiling at him. He don't know me, but I'm like this. I'm cheesing. And he knows me. He knows who I am, but we don't know each other that well, obviously.
Yeah.
And taking him through the back.
He's like, you know my mama. You good people.
Exactly.
You know my
mama.
Exactly.
So I'm taking him through the back. We're doing the different things. And he goes to his press conference.
Yeah.
And at the press conference, he's talking. He's so excited. They're asking him questions about Philly, about Villanova. Mm-hmm. And then I'm standing with our PR team, and I get the news that we have traded him.
Yeah.
And my heart drops because he has to finish the press conference.
I know.
And so we can't stop him in the middle of it. Like, he has to continue it.
No, and you know what, though, Shea, the entire time, like, 'cause you don't know what's going on. You're behind the scenes, but at the table, his agent's phones are buzzing too, and they're like, I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, no, and then the other agent, Sam and Jordan are looking at each other. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And they said Mikal's being traded, and I'm like, to where? Huh? Well, I just couldn't believe it. And the entire time they were talking, I couldn't even hear I wasn't even able to process what they were saying, because the entire time I was thinking about, I just want to go to Mikal. Like, that's that kind of like fight or flight. Like, I want to go so I can go see where my son's at, where his headspace is. I kept thinking about how he was feeling at that moment, because I can imagine him with his 76ers hat on and all of that. He's midway in his interview. I just kept thinking, I need to go check on him. So, man, that was crazy. It really was. Yeah.
Right. But don't worry. I had your back. And
Thank you.
So we go in this back room, and he has to physically trade hats with Zaire Smith.
I couldn't even imagine.
Physically. I mean, like,
do you remember what his face? So look, I'm in mom mode, right? So do you remember what his face looked like at the time? Like his psyche, like, could you tell?
I will never forget. So he had no expression. I mean, just like, I think, I felt, I don't know how you feel. I won't say betrayal or anything like that, but there's a feeling that's like, you just feel let down or disappointed or like unsure, right? Unsure. Yeah. And unfamiliar of the path that awaits you. And so he was just blank. And he traded hats. They traded hats. I mean, Zaire was not, I know, T, I'm sorry. I just have to tell this because no one gets to talk about this. You don't get to hear these things. So he was blank, and they physically switched hats, and then he excused himself and he went to the bathroom just to gather himself. Yeah. And then he came back out just like, okay, I'm ready to go. Like, and I feel like that's tipping the scales, right? Like, in that moment, and I'm sure he has to, process everything. But in that moment, he came back and he was ready to go. And then I remember coming out to you. Now, what did I tell you? What did I tell you? Because I knew you wanted him at home, but I said, what is better for him?
You did say that.
Right?
And no, first you said, he's good, T, because I think you can tell, like, of course, I'm very emotional when it comes to my son. And you looked me right in my eyes. Before you said that, you said, he's good, T, but what's best for him? And I'll never forget that you said those words to me, because now if you ask me in hindsight, like, it gets crazy when you're in an NBA. You get family members that I never knew existed, and people who like, oh yeah, I trained Mikal. I'm like, when, how, where? Like, I've literally had to drive him to every practice, to every game, to everything. Right. So, but anyway, I think it was, it was better. He was better off, right? It was the right thing. Yes. But when it happened, of course, you don't see that. And I think why I got a little bit emotional right now is because that is like the mom mode in me, like mama bear, crazy, because I want to protect him from everything. And that was a moment where it just happened. And look, I think that really just goes to show how tough he is. Like, that kid's tough. And he said, okay, like, this happened. I got to roll with it and get ready to go. So look, and at the end of the day, as we were walking out, and I said to him, I was just hugging him. He said, he always asked me, and anytime something happened to him, he's like, are you going to be all right? Even after the game, we'll get there. When they were in the finals this year, right after the game, he's like, are you okay, Mom? I'm like, are you okay? He's asking me. So literally after, when we were walking out the door, he said, Mom, whispered to me, You okay? He hugged me like, you're okay. I was like, are you okay? He's like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, Mom, I'm the number 10 overall pick in this draft. And
Mm.
we did this. We got this. And
Ooh.
that was that moment I was like, we're going to be good to go no matter what. No matter what.
I got chills. I got chills
know.
because and then I remember thinking when I hugged you in that moment and you were, you know, teary-eyed and you were emotional. You were very emotional.
I know, I was a mess.
You were a mess because you were thinking, oh my God, Phoenix is so far. I got to get on a plane. Like you
Wait,
started.
no. Okay, so wait.
Talk about that. Talk about that.
Pause right there because people who know me know that I have a legit fear of flying.
Yep.
So prior to Mikkel's trade, I have flown twice my entire life.
Right.
Once when I took Mikkel to Disney World when he was younger because I didn't want him to have that same fear as I did. So I was like, I'm going to get on a plane. I'm going to take him to Florida. I was like, after that, I was like, I'm never flying again. When we got back because I was legit fear, right? So then I get to the NBA and, of course, they have summer league meetings. They have meetings in Vegas. So my boss at the time was, okay, T, we heard you don't like to fly, but you're going to have to go to Vegas. Like, you want to be successful in your career in sports, you're going to have to get on a plane. So I flew to Vegas, hated it, but just, do what I need to do to get there. And then now I'm like, oh my gosh.
And I knew that.
I'm going to have to see my son. I'm going to have to get on a flight all the way to Phoenix. It's a 5-hour flight, by the way. Right. But I was so nervous about how am I going to see him on a regular basis because, I don't like flying. I have a very imminent fear of flying.
Right. And I thought for you, this is a next step forward for you to get over that fear, to conquer that fear, because it's not realistic to be able to stay in Philly forever. Right. And same thing I said about you, I said to you about Mikkel was like, I said, T, he needs to go and spread his wings. He needs to explore another side of the world. Life is about more than just being here. And, but in that moment, that's when I knew I love my fucking job. I love my job because in that moment, like everyone, when, and I work with a lot of athletes, but I work with the families. Like the family dynamic is what I love the best.
I know, that's what you are so good at.
And because I know, right? Like having a brother coming up through that process, being with my mom, watching my mom all the time, being like, I want to be, and I'm just like, this is what I do it for. And that moment, I'm so happy that I got to have that with you because we wouldn't be right here right now if we didn't have those moments. So
bonded Libra sisters for life.
Literally.
Wait, so you talked a little bit about just that moment for you in terms of sports and families and how it's important for you to connect and your brother. Like, when did that all start? Like, did it start when your brother was younger? Because I know Mikkel was playing since the ball was bigger than him. Like, when did the journey for you start in sports with your brother?
Yeah, so actually I started first by myself. So I'm 4 years older than my brother, Malcolm Thomas, played at San Diego State.
Hey, Malcolm.
Hey, Malcolm. During that amazing run, Kawhi Leonard, Billy White, like all these guys, Jamal Franklin, like just an amazing, amazing time in the NCAA for me. It was just amazing. And I wish I could like bottle up those moments and go back. But so I started playing basketball at the local rec YMCA in San Diego, California, where I'm actually at.
How old were you?
I was 4. No, I'm lying. I picked up a ball at 4, but I was playing organized, which is like little tyke at like 6. At 6.
I would love to see a picture of you when you were 6 with a ball in your hand.
Oh, I got some. We'll throw some up there. So I started then, but really, the really reason why I started basketball, because even though I was 6, I was very intuitive of my mom. My mom was single mom, 2 kids. And my brother was my world when he was born. Like I literally took all the little sister classes on how to hold his head, like how to feed him, like all that. I was like, I got my mom.
Shout out to the single moms.
Shout out to Lori Dawson.
Rock. Hey, Lori.
So she put me in basketball first, but she really needed somebody to watch her kids. That's what she really needed. So I didn't necessarily want to play basketball, but she was like, this is good for you. You're going to do it. And I was like, okay, cool. So I played basketball, Jackie Robinson YMCA. I basically get this whole entire family. Like there's other single moms, other single dads. Like, I mean, it's just like a community. Like I would go home with, somebody's, family or a parent or whatever. Like it was just like, hey, can you pick Shea up at this time? Like You got my uncle was coaching. Like, it was just like a whole family vibe. So
Love.
that's really how it started. And then Malcolm came after me. So then when we got older, we used to get off the bus and we used to run to practice. I mean, he would always have his ball, like you said, bigger than him, dribbling with two hands. I got my backpack going up and down with all my books.
So your position, tell us what position you played.
Oh, shooting guard. I was a shooting guard.
Okay.
I could shoot the lights out. Everyone's always like, "Oh, you couldn't score." It's like, I was a shooter. Like, I didn't drive in the lane and get hit in the face and all that. I was not that type of girl. Okay, I was the team captain, like helping people up.
But wait, so back in our Sixers days when we used to play, like, well, you guys used to play. 'Cause I'm not much of a player myself, but you were a bit of a ball hog, I think. Like, you like to shoot.
It was mainly because I would say that's correct, but
never wanted to give up that rock, Shea. I don't know.
But let me tell you a secret. So it wasn't because I didn't want to. It's because I was tired as hell.
Okay, what do you mean?
There was some old legs. Like, I couldn't get up and down. So it's like, if I'm gonna help my team,
yeah,
I gotta shoot. Exactly.
Okay, I respect you for that.
So I haven't played in a minute, but anyway, so Malcolm. So we would go to Jackie Robinson YMCA every day, and we would stay till like midnight, just playing around, shooting. Right?
Yeah, he used to go to the Greater Philadelphia. No, what Y was that? Upper Main Line Y. It's in Devon.
Man, shout out to the YMCAs across the world. Seriously.
Right? And small world. So, I was a CHRO at the Greater Philadelphia YMCAs.
Yes.
But yeah, shout out to the Ys. He would spend like his whole day there, and I would be like checking on him, like food, making sure he had lunch. But he would literally spend his entire day. I would go back and forth driving there to check on him. But that's too funny how we had similar paths.
Yeah. And so basically I love going to Y. There was boys there, there was food there, there was family there. It was really dope. And then so we just started getting better. Like, we spent all of our days there, I'm sure, like Mikhail. I mean, weekends, games, like all day. Like, I would hop in on other teams that weren't my team if they had an extra jersey, with the off jersey. Everybody else got the uniform. You got the jersey with the tape on it. Like, it was just that. And the older I got, I realized, okay, I'm good enough to play in college. So, get this whole plan. And I actually didn't pass my SAT, and it was a very devastating time for me. Like, I was very embarrassed, right? I was very embarrassed. I didn't even know that I needed an SAT to go to college. For some reason, I mean, my mom didn't know, like, how to accept the scholarship. She had no idea. Yeah. And she didn't know. So I prepared for the SAT, like, really late in the game. I had a bunch of schools calling. I thought I was going to go to Long Beach State. Didn't pass my SAT. And so I ended up going to junior college in Saddleback in Orange County, California, and played 2 years there, then played at Robert Morris. But during that time, Malcolm was getting better and better and better. I mean, he had coaches and trainers and all that stuff. My mom finally, started. And I would give her a bunch of advice. I would call around and be like, hey, I'm going to college. My brother needs to still work out, blah, blah. So I was basically managing him from a young age. Didn't even really know it was called managing.
That's where you got your start.
That's when I got my start. But I didn't know that that's what I was doing. It's not until I reflected back and that I knew all the steps to be able to tell other people. So people started to notice that I was the one handling my brother's affairs when it came to, like, recruiting, college coaches calling. Like, I mean, my mom would take the calls too, but, like, I would help her, like, what did he ask you? What did they say? When are they going to come to the house? Are they doing a house visit? Like, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we tag teamed a lot, but that's when I really got my start. Was like when I went to college and realized I didn't want to play professional. One, I don't think I was good enough. And I also wasn't as committed to putting the work in because I was really worried about everybody else. Like, I don't know. What?
Those words that you just said, I wasn't good enough. That is something that I constantly have to push past. And I think a lot of just women and people in general always may feel that. Like, at some point in their life, you may feel those words or have said to yourself, I don't feel good enough. And funny thing is, we talked about not passing your SATs, and shout out to you. You talk about, our whole podcast is about tipping the scales. That was the first little tip, right? When you said, I'm not going to let that get in my way. I'm going to go to junior college. It's going to prepare me for the next level. But I'll tell you, so I talked about how I had straight A's. But I'm a byproduct of the Philadelphia school system. And back then it wasn't as, it still had, I think it still has its struggles, but back then it was just not great. So when I got to college, I felt like I was a beat behind all the other students in the class,
Yeah.
like from the books that they've read. And I struggled my first year, like
Mm.
struggled. I had to do a lot of extra work and I had to get extra help. And I literally, I'll never forget, I called home and I was bawling my eyes out, crying, telling my mom that I was not good enough and I could not be
Right.
here. And my mom said, "You deserve to be there." And, she even gave me an example of how, it's not that I can't do it. It's just that when you think about a race, the other kids kind of got like a little head start and they
Yeah.
started to race a little bit before me. And I may be running a beat behind, but at the end of the day, I'm going to finish just like them. And I'll never forget those words that my mom shared with me. But I felt the exact same thing. And it just resonated with me when you said that, when you said, I'm not good enough, because that's, I feel like I go in and out of that. And I think
Yeah.
that some women too, that we've all felt that, or, may feel that right now, that we need to make sure that we remind ourselves, not only are we good enough, find another path if the one that you're on is not working.
Right. I love
Yeah.
that last part that you just said. And I think it's not that I wasn't good enough, because I think I
You knew
was good.
damn well you were good enough.
I knew I was good enough, but
That's right.
the thing that I was realistic about was I was not committed to putting
Yeah.
in the work that it took in order to be not only drafted into the WNBA, but to be impactful. And I never want to do anything if I'm not impactful. But what I realized about being on a team is that I was MVP when it came to making sure everybody was straight. And I think that was one of the things that, like, that's why we were good. Not just because I was helpful to my teammates, but I was committed, overly committed, still to this day, to checking on people and not the
Yeah.
game of basketball, but are you okay? And
Yeah.
what can I do to find an answer? What can I do to make sure that you are good enough, right? And when you are that person, sometimes you don't always have people that do that for you, but you do have signs and you do have things that people like, Shea, I got you, but I'm so used to being that person that I kind of like, nah, I got it. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And I think that's when I just said, I'm going to hang my shoes up and I'm going to commit to this life of service. And that's when I said, I know so much about the journey to becoming a D1 athlete and watching my brother gain more notoriety as he played amazing players like, DeMar DeRozan and like all these other young players at the time who you wouldn't think at that time, because you just see all these young players, they're going to be good. But when you look
Never
back,
know where they're going to be. Like
you don't know who they're going to be.
All stars, right?
Yeah, like James Harden, like all that, like,
That's
oh my
crazy.
God, so many great players. And so when I graduated, I worked 5-star basketball. I got an internship at my university and I saw the blueprint. I saw how to do it. NCAA,
Nice.
NCAA coaches in one building,
Yeah.
elite basketball players in one building, scouts in one building. So coaches get you to the spot, get you seen, get you on the floor, get you in front of the lights. The players are that make the market go, right? They make people's careers. They make coaches' careers. Like when you hear, oh, Kentucky has a top recruiting class, those players are making the market go, right? So I'm understanding that the exchange of the talent and the money, I'm understanding. And then the scouts, they get your name out there. They're whispering your name in the back halls. They're making sure you get clout. They're making sure you get seen. They're making sure you get wrote about, talked about.
Or you could just see the excitement in your face right now.
Oh,
that's when you know when you're passionate about stuff, guys. Like you can feel it. Like it kind of just like radiates through your body. But how did you make the connection? So you said, okay, I know this is what I'm meant to do. I see the blueprint. This is what it is.
Yeah.
How did you make the transition from that to the 76ers? Because let me tell you, there's not 1,000 people who are breaking into who wants to be in HR and sports. But I can tell you that just from being an HR executive in sports is that there's a line that circles around a block a gazillion times in terms of the people who want to work in sports. And not only do people want to work in sports, it's almost like a luxury to work in basketball operations. Like a lot of people want to work in basketball ops. It's sexy. You have that, you're around players, and you know how hard it is to break into basketball operations. And so tell us a little bit about how were you able to make that transition? I can tell you there's 1,000 million people who want to be in your shoes. So how did you do it?
And the way like when you ask me that, I feel like I'm like smiling about a boy that you're talking about. Shout out to my fiance. But
she wasn't thinking about you, boo. No, she wasn't.
okay, don't throw no shade right now. Okay, we on camera. So, like I said, I got to see how the wheel worked. I got to see how the blueprint worked.
Yeah.
And being the only woman, or girl at the time, in those spaces, I knew I had an advantage, and I knew they wasn't checking for me. But I was taking mental notes. I was taking physical notes. Like, I just thought I had the game sewn up, and I just literally plot and planned behind the scenes because nobody checks for women. Nobody checks for girls in that industry. They think you just a fangirl. They think you just this and that. Who knows what they think? But you can tell there's definitely, they're not checking for you, basically. Like, they could care less if I show up or not. And
it's hard, too. It's hard because you have, some people who want to be in basketball ops just so they can have access to the players. And unfortunately, you have professional women who just happen to be beautiful. And at times you're kind of put in a box to say, okay, you're just, you want to be a groupie. And you're like, hold on, like I have my own, I deserve to be here. So I'm sure, very beautiful woman. Like how did you struggle with that? Because I think sometimes us as women, we may shy away because of perception, and perception is not always reality.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a tough industry. Definitely been through some stuff. And but I would say just being able to be intentional about how you show up, right? Always, and it sucks that I have to do this or had to do this, is making sure you're wearing appropriate attire when you're in the gym so that people, the nonverbal cues that you're communicating. I think I was very intentional about that, like making sure, I had aesthetically nice clothes, but clothes that spoke to power, clothes that made me, that you wouldn't want to take me serious, that I either know what's up with the street culture or, the street shoe culture, or knows what's up with like just the different fashion and how it changes in the industry. Just always making sure that I was up on my best self and making sure I was putting my best foot forward. So I think a lot of that nonverbal kind of helped too, because it's a judgmental space. And so if I wanted people to take me serious, I had to make sure that I showed up so that I didn't always have to open my mouth or toot my own horn to, get the notoriety that I needed. But understanding that and finding your tribe. You got to find your tribe when you're in the sports industry. Like I had really, really good mentors, really amazing friends who put me on. But I also had to make sure I was acting the part, acting like I want to be here, going above and beyond, showing up on weekends, staying all night on weekends, like having back-to-backs, like, oh, I'll work that game, or I'll do the shot clock, I'll do, whatever it took. My intention was to make sure that I was just always showing up and serving people. And
intentionality is important. You have to.
Intentionality is super important. And I read a lot still about intentionality. I think I talk about this a lot in other podcasts I've been on. There's this book, Gary Zukov. Gary Zukov is an author, but he wrote Seed of the Soul, and it was all about intention. That actually changed like a lot of things that I've done. But anyway, going back to the question, let me answer the question because I'm going all over the place. How I got from working just in random basketball spaces, Pangos All-American Camp, 5-star basketball, just Fab 48 when that was a tournament in Vegas, which is now the big time with Gary Charles, Dino Shagonis, and Pangos.
Oh, yeah.
It was that same blueprint that I noticed at the 5-star. It's in every gym, but you got to know that it's around. You got to know what's there. You can't just go in as a spectator. I never went in as a spectator. I was looking to see who's on the baseline, who's at the door, who's running this tournament, and what other businesses do they have attached to their name. And just always making sure that I'm like, hey, can I volunteer? Can I help you out? I saw you had this. I saw you don't have a video person. I saw you don't have a camera person. I know a person. I think I can hire this one person. She'll work for free for this year. If she's good, hire her the next year. So constantly always connecting the dots and always making sure I have the information that's valuable to others. And I think that's how I got there. It's just always sitting in rooms, taking notes. And then when someone asks me, because I don't ever like to volunteer or be like, oh, I know this. But if I'm asked or I'm put in a position to be able to speak true to power, true to the situation, I'm going to let you know. And then when it happens and it converts, people are like, yo, Shea, that's so dope. Thank you for putting exactly, because people did it for me. So
Yeah.
I saw the value in it because I saw how it changed my life. So I started doing that to others. And that's technically how I got there. But one other thing is I manifested, meaning like when people asked me what I wanted to do when I was working at Pangos All American Camp, I would say, oh, I want to work in the NBA. And they're like, you want to work in the NBA? When I know that 90% of people in here don't know what it takes to get to the NBA. Neither did I, but I know you don't either. So you don't have a right to crap on my dream.
That's
So what I
right.
did was I just went on the internet and I looked at different teams. I looked at the directory. I looked at the jobs that they offered. And then I basically matched it to my skill set. And I started to do those things for free. I started to, be the ear of players that they needed help with. Who's this coach? Oh, I know that coach. He goes to UCLA, Ben Howland. He works, he's connected with the Pumps. You should do this. The Pumps go to these tournaments. The tournaments have these scouts, right? Yeah. And I started to basically tell all the players and the parents exactly how it was going to happen. And of course, I didn't know it verbatim because, I couldn't call it out. I'm not a psychic, but I would say, put yourself in these positions and you'll be seen, and it would happen. And then, so that started to, get around that was like buzzing. And then next thing you know, there was like, Shea, like, you deserve to be here. And so.
Like, yeah. I remember as you're speaking, I'm thinking about Floyd Mayweather's 3 words: hard work, grit, and determination. I think he talks about, but that's a combination of all those things you need to have. And even when Mikal was at Villanova, those are things that they had to embody, just in terms of their values as players at Villanova. So those are the things that's going to propel you to help you stay focused, but yet not knowing. Look, in sports, it's a grind, right?
It's a grind.
It's a total grind, and you got to be willing to put in that work. And that's what you're telling everyone right now is, right, I got to put that work in, I got to grind, and I'm going to go do everything I can to go above and beyond. Like, nothing's just going to fall in your lap. And I love you didn't use, because oftentimes too, like even with me working in sports, because I have a son right now that plays in the NBA, they're saying, oh, did your son get you your job? I'm like, my son, when I started working in sports, my son was like a red shirt player.
Okay. So clearly you don't know about Jay Wright. Okay. He red shirts.
So no, but that's just almost, unfortunately, an assumption though. Like when you have certain connections that people just automatically think that, oh, you got your connection. Oh, you got into sports because of your brother. So people need to know that, no, this was your hustle. This was your grind. Yeah. In terms of what you needed to do to get there.
Yeah. And my brother was my why. I have a couple brothers, but two brothers that play basketball, Malcolm Thomas, Mikey Williams, 2 brothers, elite, that Malcolm taught me how to navigate for Mikey. And they are my why. I look at every athlete as if they are them. And what I would want from my brother, who's ever interacting with them, taking care of them, giving a ride, speaking to them in a way, I make sure that I give that to each player that I work with, because I wouldn't want anybody else treating them differently. Treat them like humans. If they're not supposed to be doing that, tell them no, right? And so I basically, and I will say they have put me in position, but I've been ready to receive. So there have been rooms that I probably couldn't get in by myself because of my brothers, but I was ready, trust and believe. Like, I already had a resume going into that room. So did I get it because of my brothers? I wouldn't say no, but I would say to stay ready. So when it's time, you don't got to get ready.
Yeah,
and that's kind of how I've done it.
Yeah, I was going to say everyone should be using their resources, because it's only so much that resources can do. Like in terms of your connections, they can help get you in the right space or in the right room, but it's up to you to be able to capitalize on that opportunity. And, I say to some people, because I have helped people just through my relationships get in the door, but I would say it's up to you to stay there, right? I could introduce you to the right people for you to sell yourself and get in the door. But once you get there, you're going to have to do the hard work to stay, because as you know, especially in sports, it's very fast paced, and you either will sink or swim. It's just, there's no in between. Yeah. So, I think that I'm glad that you're sharing your story, because people need to know, like, it's how hard it is and how you're constantly thinking of how do you evolve within your role. Right. Not really, stay in that status quo.
Right. Yeah. And I think another thing that I think about when we're talking about all this is like, how do you pivot when things don't go the way you want it to? Because nothing in these industries, in life, goes as you plan it.
Never.
Right? Never.
Never.
And I always say, what can go wrong will go wrong. So you have to plan for when things don't go right. You always have to have that in your mind. Like people hate saying, like basketball players hate saying plan B. But I
Yeah.
always tell them it's not plan B. It's plan
Yeah.
1A. It's a
Yeah.
contingency plan. You
Yeah.
have to know that life is, it's not fixed. Everything is constantly fluid, constantly flowing, constantly changing. And you have to be able to adapt to change.
And
I think,
failure too,
and
right?
failure.
Like failure is part of the process. I would say, I say all the time, no challenge, no change. Like you have to be able to be ready to push yourself and accept failure
Yeah.
and not rest in it, but say, okay, what can I learn from it and how can I be different and be better so that it doesn't happen again? But if you're not failing at something, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough because you should fail. That's just part of your journey, part of
Yeah.
your path. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I just think about times that, we've changed careers together.
Well, I was waiting. Like, did I drum roll?
I know.
I was going to say, because if you asked us both, we would say, and I never forget when we met, we were like, just like two like fangirls, like, oh my God, this is my dream job. This is your dream. And we were like, this is our dream job.
We thought it was it. We thought that was it. Like we made it. That was it.
Right?
We were done. We were at our dream job. I'll never forget it.
But remember I came to you, I was like, we had dinner, I think. In King of Prussia. No, in Cherry Hill.
Cherry Hill.
Yeah. And that's Cherry Hill, New Jersey, for those of you who don't know. And I said, we had dinner. I said, Shea, I want to leave sports. Like I'm ready to start a new path. And you were like, because everyone thinks I'm like the one who gets all choked up. You were like really choked up about it. You were like, T, I'm so proud of you. And do you know, I never had the opportunity to tell you this, but do you know you were the first person who said that to me? Because everyone else, when I was saying I'm leaving sports, it was like, why? What's wrong? Like, that's everything.
Talk about it.
Or selfishly, they're like, who am I going to get my tickets from? Like I was the connect, right?
Absolutely.
So now I'm losing my connect. But I just want to say thank you because you were the person who looked me right in my eyes and said, T, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for stepping out and wanting to do something different. And I know everything you touch, you're going to be successful. So thank you for that.
Man, I love you. Of course. That's what love is. Love is unconditional, right? So whether you work with the Sixers, whether your son is Mikal Bridges, whether you have a job or not, like you're my girl. And I just see a lot of you in me and vice versa. So, it's like you never know what your people are going through because T, I wanted to leave sports too.
And I didn't know that until a couple weeks later.
You inspired me. You inspired me. I already knew I know, right? Heart. I already knew I wanted to leave, but I was scared. I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And it not necessarily detach myself from sports, but leave the sport, the organization of team.
Yeah.
One, because there's a lot of people in sports who haven't done the internal work. And to work every day with people who are constantly trying to climb a ladder, which I'm not knocking. I understand it. It's just not, it's not me. It's not a Libra spirit, right? Because I'm confident in being myself. I always turn the permissions on in my life to live purposefully.
I love that.
Right? And live just in my own skin. And if that's not something that someone else agrees with or they don't like it, I have to bow gracefully and say, that's your right. That's your opportunity to say and express. I've done enough internal work, I feel like, to continually grow from my situations and to say, maybe I'm just not your cup of tea. And so when I wanted to leave, I was scared. But when you left, I said, all right, I put my plan together too.
and what do you think? What do you think was the first question everyone was asking me when I left?
What happened?
What happened? And
what happened?
And was it because they traded your son? Still to this day, even when Phoenix was in the finals and I was doing a couple of interviews and a couple of reporters, every reporter will always ask, did you leave the 76ers because they traded your son? I'm like, look, at the end of the day, it's not personal at all. Like, it was a decision that was made at the time that they thought was best for their organization, and shit happens, right?
Right.
And I think we got to be real about it. But I don't know if it was the best decision for them, but
But
it worked
that
out
didn't
well
help.
for us,
Right.
right?
Right.
And at the same time, I was like, no, I was ready to do something different. I wanted something different for my path. And it was a culture that I wanted a different culture. I wanted something that was right for me. And it was a courageous move on my end. And a lot of times people didn't think it was the right decision, but I'm happy that I made it. And that's not to say too, like there's different struggles in every organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also too, like we got to be honest, like just being a Black woman, that brings about its own set of challenges
Mm-hmm.
that you face. And I can say, being a C-suite employee, there are people, and it was just so funny. I was talking to a good mentor of mine. Shout out to Bill Hawthorne. He's awesome. And I was talking to him on Friday, and he was just like, to you, pulse check, how you feeling right now? And I said, look, I am having some struggles too with a few people, just in terms of it's hard. Like some people don't want to see a Black woman in a C-suite position. And, I'm just proud to work for my company. We're very, diverse and inclusive, but there's still going to be some times where people don't want to see my Black face
Yes.
in a
Yes.
position of power. And
Yes.
at times I struggle with that because
Ooh,
it really upsets me. And I have to remember I
preach.
got to take a step back and not take it personal. It's part of, it's going to happen, but at some point I would love it that we would get past this. So, we don't have to be so specific to have certain initiatives to make an organization diverse and inclusive of those things which just happen organically, but
Ooh.
we're not there yet. And we got to continue to help pave the way for others. But it's a
That was
struggle,
so
right?
good. So good. So good.
It's a struggle.
It is a struggle. And shout out to you for achieving and being in the C-suite. That is not an easy task.
Yeah.
And the more I learn about business, I used to think I wanted to be in the C-suite, but I
Yeah.
don't. I don't. I don't. And because sometimes in the C-suite, you can't really be yourself. And
Yeah.
I just don't want to, I always want to be myself.
I do feel that way sometimes.
Right?
And
You have to conform
yeah,
to the ideal of what a C-suite is supposed to be like. And I had a lot of people always
yeah,
tell me, Shea, if you want to, be a top executive, you got to dress like this, you got to do this. And I thought, well, maybe I don't need to be. And the
yeah.
fact that I would say that, I mean, you would think I had 3 heads. And it's not about that for me. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about that for me. Not that I don't want it. I would want it, but I would want you to take me as I am. And if
Yeah.
you can't take me as I am, then maybe
That's
being
important.
senior director, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm cool with that. Not to say I'm going to stop in terms of my impact. I feel like my impact and my output will be C-suite level. But
That's
when it
right. I
comes
love
down,
that.
right? When it comes down to title,
Love that.
y'all can have it.
Yeah.
Y'all
And
can, y'all can have it.
at the end of the day though, Shay, like titles don't matter. Like you said, it's the impact that you're making is really going to drive change, is going to really at the end of the day get results, right?
Right.
So, I'm happy, like I said, that I for the first time, it takes a long time to, I feel like to get the right ball sometimes, but
Yeah.
I have a really good one. Look, he's not easy by any stretch of imagination. He's like go, 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 go. He can run circles around any CEO I've ever met in my life. Like this guy is go time. He's probably, if I email him right now, he's working.
Yeah.
He never takes his foot off the pedal, but he understands that, one thing he said to me on Friday is that it meant a lot to me because I know I work hard, and not only not working hard, but working smart and really help shift our culture so we can have a great place to work. That's my
Woo.
goal, and that's the path I'm going to stay on within our organization. And not only being a great place to work, but being a place where every single person who walks through our doors can be their, like you said, your most authentic self.
Right.
Because you shouldn't have, like when you come to work, you bring your whole self to work. You don't just bring this part of you 9 to 5 or whatever your hours are. You bring your whole self to work.
Yeah.
And as a chief human resources officer, I want to make sure that the organization that I'm working for is going to allow every individual to be their most authentic self and be appreciated, valued, and supported, throughout their journey and their career with us. And I am proud to say that my boss, like, shout out to Michael Bronfine, he allows me to just, there's basically, he takes breaks off and just say, go T. But
I love it.
not only that, he respects me as a person. He said to me on Friday, he said, T, I just have a lot of respect for you as a person in terms of where you've been to where you are. Like, I have a lot of respect for you. So it meant a lot.
I love that. I love that. And that kind of makes me think about when I left the Sixers to come to overtime. Overtime.
That's huge.
Right? Overtime. Yeah. Shout out overtime. I can't do my O because I'm holding my mic, but shout out overtime.
Overtime.
But I created a position. I didn't know if they would accept it, but I knew what I was doing at the Sixers was valuable in terms of players and families and making sure that everybody had what they needed and communicated with and felt that they were valued as a part of an organization or part of a team. And overtime is definitely a team. And I had went to an event called the Overtime Takeover that my little brother Mikey was playing in. And literally, I mean, they thought of everything. I mean, they greeted me at the train station. We got a ride to the venue. Somebody greeted me at the hotel. I had gear and a note in the bed.
Wait, what does that remind you of?
Me.
Okay, I was literally
what I used to do, how I used to do it all the time.
That reminds me of
the Shea Dawson experience. The Shea Dawson experience.
Yes.
So you already know I was like, yes, and it was some stuff I was like, I wish I would have thought of that. Anyway, so I all these little touch points that they had, and then so I said, I'm gonna create a job description. I'm gonna pitch it to overtime. Overtime created space for me to be me, to bring my whole freaking self, top to bottom, and said, Shea Dawson, we want you. And that was one of the best days of my life because I saw you had a plan for your life, you exited, I exited a couple weeks after. And then I 3 months off, best 3 months off of my life between the Sixers and between overtime.
That's awesome.
And I got to just enjoy myself. But overtime allows me to be myself. And I'm so grateful to be able to leave a situation that I felt like I couldn't be myself authentically, wholeheartedly. And overtime was like, whatever you got, we want it. We buying it. Like, please come over here, share that with us. We're here. And we're here now. We're here now, head of athlete relations, get to work with so many amazing youth athletes. We started a league called Overtime Elite, which really is like my heart and soul. You know, I helped build it with amazing colleagues, and it is gonna thrive. And I'm just like, yes, living in my purpose, and overtime allowed me to do that. And I'm forever grateful. So it's like cultures matter. And the fact that you are the culture creator in your company and that we get to talk about this, I don't know what's better. I'm gonna drink to
everything.
That. My coffee. Shout out to Better Buzz Coffee in San Diego.
Get a little sip of water.
So I mean, amazing.
So we talked about a lot, right? Like we talked about how we got started. We talked about our journeys and our paths to success, right?
Yeah.
What's our goal? Like when you think about tipping the scales and what do we want to accomplish? Like what's our overarching goal of our podcast?
I think people get stuck. They get stuck. They get stuck in ruts. They get stuck in their head. They get told on, like you said, when you had Mikhail and they were like, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. You get caught in that loop.
Yeah.
And so how podcasts serve my life right now is when I'm stuck, I go to my Apple Podcast. I open it up. I find the people who I know hear me, see me. I turn it on, I listen to it, and I get creative thoughts on how to get out of my situation. And I think it's helping people get unstuck. I like to I think that people who are going to listen to our show, I'm calling y'all tippers because y'all tipping the scale every day.
That's
back
right.
in your favor. And T always says she doesn't believe in balance. She believes in harmony. And so sometimes...
Look at you remember my words,
girl,
sweetie.
I got you. Okay, I listen. And
so wherever you are right now,
yeah,
wherever you get your podcast, make sure you follow Tipping the Scales. We want you to be a part of our experience and our journey, so we can make sure that we are helping you in any way that we can, just like she talked about.
And follow us on Instagram, Tipping the Scales. Also, Title League podcast. Follow them, Title League, on Instagram, because you will get posts, and we want to hear from you. We want to have an engaging community. We want to understand where women are at. We want to understand where men are at. We want to understand where Black women are at. We know y'all need somebody when you're stuck. We know there's a lot of marginalized people out there. And I think that our stories have helped us to overcome, but that's so much institutional knowledge to help people get out of situations, to continue to be tippers, to continue to tip back and forth, because there is no balance. If you're balanced, you're done. You might as well die. You've got to constantly weigh your option, constantly move and adjust and adapt. And I think
harmonize.
And it's about quality of life. I think that's what this podcast is doing for us. But I think that's what we can do for others, because one, we have experience picking ourselves back up constantly. And it's about finding your center, always finding your center, always coming back to self and say, what does T want? What does Shea want? And whatever you want, make sure that it's best for not just you, but make sure you're putting out and you're impacting other people's lives, because everybody has something to give.
I love that. Oh, so I don't think I can add anything to that. That was like perfect, shawty. What can we give a little taste on what's to come? Like, of course, we want you to, we have some amazing guests that's going to be coming on our show, on our podcast, to really help, just like Shea did, help you along your way and your journey. But what else can they expect from Tipping the Scales? Some fun stuff, something fun that we can put a little hook into.
Oh,
really want to pull? No, listen.
What?
I gotta shout out my dad, Robert Tucker. He is, every time I get dressed to go out, he's like, his saying is, you're fishing, you're trying to find someone, you're trying to hook and bring the fish back in. But I'm not really trying to do that. But anyway, I am trying to do that from Tipping the Scales. We want to throw out our little hook and reel you back in so you can continue to follow us. So what's something that they can expect from us that will get them excited about more of what's more to come?
I think the behind the scenes in sports, getting real conversations from real people that they follow, that they admire, hearing the different industries and sub-industries within sports that are not always sports focused. I think they can get authentic conversation. I think you're going to cry. I think you're going to laugh. I think you'll get all your emotions.
I'll be the crying one.
I'll be crying too. Yeah, I'll be crying too. But I think just the ability to put this on in your car and be like, yes, T, that was what I'm talking about. Now I'm about to write that down and then I'm going to expound on that. So just giving people little nuggets. What we're going to do is sow good seeds, and then you water those seeds, and then it grows. And then your life is full of abundance, full of love, full of happiness, and will always be a place you can come.
You better preach, Shea, Dawson.
The experience is here. No, just kidding.
So make sure you follow Tipping the Scales. We want you to be a part of our journey, and we want to help you on your journey as well.
Yes, follow Tipping the Scales wherever you get your podcast. We love you. And like T says, what you say? We got you, boo.
We got you, boo.
Period.